I don't know a lot about processors.
AMD. Well, all right.
Don't
AMD,
even start.
AMD is better for graphics.
Okay.
Put it like that. AMD is better for graphics.
Okay. Welcome.
Right.
Welcome to the Pick and Roll Podcast. It's Pick and Roll Podcast number 11.
Yes.
Number 11.
We're into the double digits.
I am Roderick Wallace. This is
Quentin Barrett.
That's
right.
We got a lot to talk about, but we're going to try to get through it pretty quickly, but we'll see what happens. This is Pick and Roll number 11. You can hit us up at PAR Podcast. You can email us at pickandrollpodcast@gmail.com. You can do whatever you want to do, but you should subscribe to the channel. Visit us at pickandrollpodcast.com, where you can check out an archive of our shows up to this point.
That's right.
We've been having a fantastic time doing this, so we'll jump right into it. A lot of things going on this week, so we'll talk about the news this week involving Ray Rice, as well as this late-breaking story about Adrian Peterson from the Minnesota Vikings. Give our perspectives on it. Quentin has been blowing up Twitter, exploding Facebook feeds and timelines with his take on it, so we'll get a little bit into that. We'll talk about some early impressions of the NFL really quickly, too. We also want to talk about the new Chris Brown album, which actually will be released at retail on the 16th. However, let's keep it 100.
Yeah,
we have it. It's out there.
Everybody
you know
has
what I'm saying? And if it's out there, and that's something that's interesting to me. It's funny how the music industry has kind of bought in to the fact that
it's going to leak.
It's going to leak. So you have more artists that are doing album streaming before it actually comes out and things of that nature.
Less release parties.
Right.
Yeah.
Selling units is not the impact of selling units is not there as much as they focus on creating a brand for other commercial ventures, because there is no money in making CDs these days. But that's a whole nother conversation. So just to kind of review the week in a nutshell, as some of you may have already known, Ray Rice was suspended for 2 games for an incident that was caught on video in an Atlantic City hotel. I think this was back in April, where the infamous video of him dragging his then fiance out of the elevator, seemingly unconscious, a source of a lot of humor. For some people. For other people, it was just another example of the problems of domestic violence in our society. So eventually he was suspended for 2 games. And then this week, strategically, I would say, TMZ released video of the actual incident that happened in the elevator. And needless to say, it was quite violent,
graphic,
and quite troubling. Roger Goodell and his team, in an interview, I believe with CBS Sports, talked about the fact that they hadn't seen that before they made the decision. Now, the legal aspect and the legal side of things, I think, did see it. Ray Rice didn't receive any jail time.
No.
They felt as though they dealt with it as judiciously as possible. But public outcry was immediate. Roger Goodell's response was to ban him indefinitely. The Ravens' response was to cut him, which in effect at this point today, we probably can say that this is going to be the end of Ray Rice's career, especially with the year that he had last year. It could conceivably be the end of his career, not because of the controversy in his ability. Well, his ability is what it is, but who's going to want to touch?
Yeah, he was a diminishing asset.
Who's going to want to deal with that level of controversy?
On his way down.
A lot of things being said about this. Is it overkill to take away this man's employment? Is it malfeasance on the part of Roger Goodell? Is he lying? So let's kind of start with the actual releasing of the tape.
Okay.
As we, it was a punchline a couple of months ago, where what happened to Ray Rice's fiance it was, you know, a bit comedic in the eyes of some people.
We did treat it lightly,
but we didn't necessarily know what happened in the elevator. So tell me about what your impressions were when you actually saw the video.
I mean, it was shocking. Not because, I tell you what, it was shocking not because I couldn't believe that this sort of thing is happening. I mean, we know that domestic violence is a very real and tangible thing in our society, and has been for forever. We understand that full well, but I think what made it such an event, I think, was there was a situation where we all could watch this the same piece of video footage and basically glean the same thing, and none of that painted Ray Rice in a positive light. The way that the blow was delivered and the way that it affected her, I mean, basically, you know, rendering her unconscious, you know, in almost, you know, one sweep. It was just kind of like, you know, we're used to seeing things like that, you know, fight videos between men. We're used to seeing boxing matches or UFC matches or kickboxing matches and those sorts of things. And it's kind of an ooh ah moment. But when it's a female receiving that sort of contact, there's something that goes through, I think, the mind of most people, and they, you know, they immediately feel bad for her. Mm-hmm. And to have to see that, and then him being as known of a commodity as he is in this country, to have to attach that sort of feeling to a person who we become familiar with, is, you know, it's a difference when you see people who you do not know on, let's say, some random YouTube video. Somebody's got a cell phone video of a couple in the middle of the street in whatever the hell America. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily I mean, you feel for those people, you feel bad for that individual, but the fact that we know these people, we don't know them personally, but we're familiar with their likeness. They're in the public eye. It just kind of it was a chance to respond as a group. And usually when that happens, it's going to be an extreme response.
Right.
And I think that, you know, the floodgates opened and we all just we dove in.
You know, I look at this versus the Rihanna and Chris Brown situation, where, you know, the pictures were released on TMZ and Chris Brown was immediately made a villain. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because looking back at it in retrospect, where, you know, Rihanna claimed a certain level of responsibility for the incident, or what led up to what happened in the car, and then there was the discussions about, you know, Chris Brown and Rihanna being back together after he got off probation and all this kind of thing, and
banning his songs. We're not going to play Chris Brown's music.
I think all of these conversations kind of, and you can tell me if I'm off base here, but to me, I always look at the broader context. That's just who I am.
You should.
And what does this say about gender roles in our society? You know, and this could even be a sticky
That's
area. That's
exactly what it is.
You know, but at the end of the day, I don't know what level of antagonism there was on the part of Ray Rice's wife. No antagonism should lead to you smacking the woman you love, right, and making her unconscious. But
there's no legit defense for this.
We have to be there is no defense for Ray Rice and what he did.
No.
But we have to be, you know, you look at that versus the Jay-Z and Solange video, where Solange violently attacked Jay-Z and he didn't respond. But we have to be very careful about educating our young ladies about being in situations where violence is a part of it. And there's so many tiers to this issue, not even talking about the NFL and Goodell and what they did and what they didn't do, but from the perspective of male-female relationships. Domestic violence is a reality.
Yes.
And what concerns me is that I can't sit up here and tell you, seeing what we've seen on the internet, knowing situations, that it's never appropriate to put your hands on a woman. Because I've heard that a lot this week, and I've kind of stayed quiet about it, but I've seen situations, especially dealing with disciplinary matters, and mind you, this is dealing with kids, but I've seen young ladies have a level of aggression that I just don't see out of boys anymore.
Okay.
And when I talk about gender roles, what I'm saying is it seems as though the aggression is switching.
Okay.
You know, we don't know what happened before Ray Rice. We don't know the conversation. We don't know the conversation between what happened with Jay-Z and Solange. But what I do know is doing what he does for a living and being who he is, he had to control that situation. He had to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The responsibility is always going to rest on the male's shoulders in a situation like that.
Right, because of gender roles.
And however people want to play ping pong with that, or whether it should be, it has nothing to do with, the reality behind it is that's what the situation is. Responsibility is going to fall on the male in that situation. But we all have to put ourselves on hypocrisy watch during all of these conversations.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is,
yes,
I'm going to start using some generalizations, and so
Please.
we put the disclaimer out there.
Please.
We all enjoyed the joke that Chris Rock told, right? Chris Rock does a bit. He said, people tell me there's never a reason to hit a woman. Shit. And see, ha.
Yeah.
So we enjoy that joke because we understand the difficulty in discussing that element of what our society is, what our society has always been.
Yeah.
We understand how difficult it is to discuss that. So it's funny when Chris Rock steps out and said, shit.
But it's funny because it can be real too.
See, and that's what comedians are. They are the truth tellers, and they give us an opportunity to look at ourselves in an honest moment. And if we can laugh at it, maybe we can get through it. Well, here's a situation where there's no comedy.
Right.
This is not something to laugh at, and so we have to still face it. And I just don't think we are at a point to discuss this honestly.
But let's look at it through the filter of what has happened with the media too. So the media breaks the story, the media jumps on the story. We have issues going on. There's a respiratory illness that's going around in the country. There's the situation involving the ISIS people in Iraq and this, that, and the third. But this is the number one story on every nightly news station on Thursday and Friday.
Right.
So, and then you have organizations stepping to the forefront that really have not stepped to the forefront for issues involving black women in particular, that are all of a sudden speaking up on these things and kind of stepping to the stage. And it's just what in our lifetimes, and we're not that old, I think that we've seen such a switch in terms of the focus on the lives of people in the public eye versus the real issues that it sickens me sometimes.
Well, and I disagree with you slightly there. I don't think that there is a switch. I think it's always been that way. It's just the frequency is a lot higher
because of news cycles.
So we, as a country, we're just going to separate this country out of world context. We've always been had an affinity for celebrity. I mean, even here in this country, we have people who have followed the royal family for decades. Even people that didn't have anything to do with American society. But you look at the celebrity icons that date back:
Liz Taylor,
Marilyn Monroe, James Dean. All these
you're
things.
Right. There's always been that affinity.
They embody, what we want to believe about ourselves. And so the same thing is happening here, but now it is more graphic, it is more often, there's more detail,
yes,
it is more real.
Yes.
And so the visceral reaction that people have to these events are more real, more extreme, are more frequent.
So then we begin to talk about the economic interests of those who are involved, which forces the hand of a Baltimore Ravens owner or an NFL commissioner.
Right. And that's to me where I rest my arguments. I'm not going to sit and debate the fight anymore. Okay, I don't think there's any need to debate who hit who first or what she was doing. That kind of stuff. I think that is a discussion that can be had on a street corner somewhere.
Right.
The important discussion here is about Ray Rice, what he did, and his career going forward. Okay, and that to me is where I think we can have a meaningful discussion. And the meaningful discussion there is it goes back to the consumer, the age of media, and we're talking about why these things are more prevalent in the media. It still goes back to the consumer. It still goes back to what you request or what you do with your dollars, what you do with your energy. Okay, Ray Rice being released from the Ravens should not bother anybody.
And it shouldn't surprise anybody.
It shouldn't surprise anybody, especially not NFL fans.
Right.
NFL fans know deep down that the only purpose of the Baltimore Ravens is to put a quality product on the field in order to make money. And making money as an NFL franchise has to do with football, yes, but it also has to do with PR,
ownership,
marketing.
How do the fans take ownership over the players that are there?
And so,
because we feel as though they belong to us.
If Ray Rice and what he has done stands in the way, even to a slight degree, of the progress that the Ravens organization is trying to make, he has to go.
Similar to Donald Sterling.
He has to go.
You know, even though he said what he said, and the NFL more so, because the NFL is a machine of hypocrisy, to be honest. Absolutely. You know, when you look at what is going on involving the problems with retired players' health care and transparency about concussions and the effect of concussions, as well as just the sheer savageness with which the game is played and its effect on the minds of those who play it and have played it. The NFL has always been about protecting its interests.
That's the way it has existed to this point.
At the same time, you know, there's anytime you're dealing with big business or anytime you're dealing with leadership, hypocrisy is always on the tipping point.
It's normal
because it's completely, I don't want to say it's impossible, but consistency at that level is very tough.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with every situation as it is. I mean, when you think about what's going on with Greg Hardy with the Panthers,
right,
and the Panthers having the hope that it's dealt with from the league. I mean, they want to have it dealt with in court before they actually do what they do. Now, they have a precedent to fulfill. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you consider that the circumstances involving Greg Hardy's case are a lot more serious.
Absolutely.
In terms of what the accusations are, a lot more serious than what happened with Ray Rice. You know, they have to now protect their economic interest. Did you see the video of the owner breaking
crying
down
and everything? I heard the audio. It was ridiculous.
Jesus.
It was ridiculous. I yawned.
Right. I mean, he came across like he had smacked somebody.
Yeah.
But
nuts.
Saying all that to say,
I would just want to insert that right there is one of the reasons that is clouding the discussion right now, because it's speeches like that, and even, and sorry to say, statements like Janae Rice put out that buy into this NFL family bullshit.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist, you guys. It's about dollars and cents. Forget about that. Well, you know, we have a responsibility to each other. No,
these people are billionaires. They're
billionaires. Let it go.
And they got that way for a reason. You don't become a billionaire without. It's rare to become a billionaire without exploiting someone.
That's the way it works,
or something.
And we don't. And we don't have a real problem with it. You might say that you do. You might feel like you do, but you don't really. Want to know why? Did you hear the ratings for that Thursday night game?
Yes. It was like the highest for any Thursday night game.
It was like 200% increase in ratings. Yeah. So that tells me that no one cares.
The NFL is, let's be real. If Ray Rice had not been, if he hadn't been given this additional consequence, nothing would have changed. Nothing, and nothing will change.
It's not going to happen
because the NFL is among men. The NFL is such an ingrained part of American culture that it's impenetrable.
It's religion, bro. And these people are going to continue to cry and moan and say this ain't right, this ain't right, but they're going to still buy the cable package, they're going to cop that jersey, and they're going to cop season tickets.
Here's the thing. I would dare to argue that football may be the most impenetrable form of entertainment. in the country. I mean, you think about music. The music industry has went through what it's went through.
Yeah.
Movies are at an all-time. Movie sales and summer blockbusters and things in terms of sales are I don't want to say they're at an all-time. They were much lower than they were last year.
Right.
You know.
I would say that maybe the only opponent,
baseball.
I would say the only opponent may be video games. Video games still kicking ass.
Well, video games is concrete. I mean, people will buy.
Yeah.
I bought Madden.
Yeah.
And
You're not. I'm never not going to buy it. So.
Yeah.
So
you know, people will buy the same thing with a couple of extra options,
even when they don't like
it. It's principally the same concept though, because you know, I watch dozens of NFL games every year, and I get the same feeling at the end of it that there are some great plays. There's a bunch of statistics to review. I may play fantasy or not, but at the end of the day, when I move on with the rest of my life, it's over.
It's over.
It's like the beer you had yesterday. It's like you're not gonna remember what that extra sip meant or anything. So yes, the NFL is going to protect. It's going to protect its money.
Right. And on that note about protecting its money, this is, you know, we're just moving on. Roger Goodell. People are wondering, you know, if they're going to fire Roger Goodell. And I posted this the other day. Some of the listeners are, you know, we converse back and forth on Facebook.
No,
I would be shocked if they fired him.
No.
And when I mean shocked, I mean running through the streets naked shocked. And here's why. Roger Goodell is performing his job description currently. So, no, that's his job description, to protect the league, to protect the teams, to do things so that they are still able to continue, you know, standard operating procedure. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't done anything wrong in the eyes of his employer. You may feel like how you feel. You may feel that he's a hypocrite. You may feel he's not even-handed when he's. So what? Your opinion doesn't matter here. Well, why do you say that? Because it doesn't. And you know that it doesn't. And you don't care that it doesn't, because guess what? You're still going to buy season tickets.
Right.
So you don't care, really. If you cared, you'd stop supporting.
Right.
You're not going to, so that means that you don't care. And the owners know that, and Roger Goodell knows that. Now, will Roger Goodell step down? Yeah, we might could debate that. That'll be a personal choice of him for him. But if the owners fire him, I'm telling you, that would be shocking.
He won't. Somebody will, as we talked about, somebody will take the fall for the tape. Somebody will take the fall, and they will have a very nice, healthy severance package for the rest of their life, and a signed agreement of choking the story, and we will move on. Yep. I did want to ask you before we move on about Adrian Peterson. And I was actually on the way home listening to our local radio station when that story broke.
Yep.
And I screamed.
I think I was doing the same thing. Yeah,
I screamed because he's on one of my fantasy teams too, and that's even so much more selfish.
Yeah,
I mean, people's fantasy teams are like over right now. I mean, there are people who have this, but according to what we're hearing, and to be honest, I don't know the entire story.
Yeah.
All I know is what is being widely said is that he whipped his son with a switch. His son had injuries from being whipped with a switch.
Did you see the pictures?
No.
I did see the pictures.
You saw the pictures.
Yes,
was it pretty bad?
There was some webs there, and I did not see the details of some of the bruising that they described in the police report, but there was some webs. There were some cuts.
Did he accept? So he turned himself in?
Yes, he did. He said that he said it was
called
a normal
the police?
beating to him. Well,
his baby mama?
She took him to the doctor because of the quote-unquote injuries. Now, I'm using quote-unquote because I'm not telling you that I've ever bled from a whooping. I'm not going to tell you that. I am going to tell you that I have had wheps from a whooping. I'm not going to tell you I bled. So some of you may have.
Yes.
Some of you may have not.
Yes.
She took her child to the doctor. So whatever.
So as you may
judge her if you want.
Yeah. Now there are people who have on Twitter, and I said on Facebook today, please, athletes, please stay off Twitter. It seems as though making sideways comments that are eligible to be judged by the public at large is something that's more,
I'm looking at you, Paul George.
It's from the athletes. It's from the athletes, then it seems more than entertainers, even though CeeLo got in trouble too. But I mean, they're saying things like, I got my ass whooped. you know, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am. And there's a part of me that definitely agrees with that to a degree.
Right.
I mean,
it's going to resonate for a lot of people.
Having that discipline. Now, I never was injured from getting my butt whooped.
Yeah.
And
I think AP did what a lot of parents feel that they have done once or twice in their lifetime, rearing children. If you are a parent, we are not judging corporal punishment. If you are a parent that believes in corporal punishment, I believe that there may have been a time or two where you may have went overboard.
Yeah, but I think that we can judge corporal punishment to a degree simply because. Well, I guess we can't. I think
there's no empirical data that says
it doesn't work for everybody.
Corporal punishment works. There's no empirical data. Right. It's cultural,
and so it doesn't work for everybody.
We don't judge cultural things.
But here again, though, when you look at it from a cultural perspective, you have the taking of sides, because people from the South, African American people, especially above the age of 25, 30, knowing if you didn't get a switch, you knew what a switch was.
That's right.
Or you saw somebody get the switch.
That's right. You knew
flat
exactly
out.
what it was, and it's it's normal to you.
It's
normal to you.
So then here you go again with this judgment along racial lines, along cultural lines, similar to what we saw in Ferguson, similar to what we saw in a lot of different situations recently where this has the capacity to polarize people.
Right. But once again, there's the hypocrisy too, because getting whooping from a black mama is almost a genre of comedy. It's almost a genre of punchline. Everybody laughs at that.
But it's funny because everyone can relate.
Everybody can relate. But all of a sudden, we're polarized.
Right.
No.
It's become, when you think about it, so let's take a step back and look at the broader context. When you look at stereotypes in terms of discipline, from parents to kids, white discipline involves a lot of conversation, a lot of patience, a lot of bargaining, a lot of, and then so a lot of African American people look at that as being soft discipline. So then you have, stereotypically, white kids who tell their parents F you when they're teenagers.
Call them by their first name.
Meanwhile,
that sort of thing.
The stereotype is African American kids will go outside of the home and do whatever, but they will never disrespect their mother.
Nowhere near.
So AP is caught in the middle of that, and it's another cultural war that we're going through and it seems as though in the last few years, in the last year especially, these things have been coming more and more to the forefront, although it's always been an undercurrent.
Well, I think the discussions are reaching more people now. So we have an opportunity to have these conversations in the open. And I think water cooler discussions, which what it used to be, office discussions. So we're talking about kind of 80s, 70s, 80s corporate culture stuff and it kind of makes it into the water cooler discussions. What happened on Monday Night Football? What happened in the news last night? These become things, conversations you have at work. Well, those conversations are spread all across the country now.
But let me ask you this. When the stuff in Ferguson happened, did you have any water cooler conversations?
Well, I can't.
Yeah, you said that on the show.
I cannot because I'm not prepared to do that. I take responsibility for that. But also, the audience is not prepared either. But I could have that water cooler discussion with people who live in Virginia.
Okay.
With people who live in Texas, people who live in California. I can have water cooler discussions via social networking that are just as fulfilling.
So I think that those conversations are less comfortable to have one-to-one than they were several years ago.
Absolutely.
Now. I think that they're less comfortable because we have developed this groupthink where if you don't think a certain way, then you don't fit into the mold, and you're violating some kind of rule of trust with the group that you're supposed to be a part of.
I don't mean to sound
yes, you do.
Talented tenthy
yes, you do.
A little bit here, but I think
you are the black bourgeoisie.
There was somebody that wrote, it was Professor West, talked about America teaching gangsterism. So who you down with? Right. Every conversation becomes a taking sides.
Yeah.
And this country teaches if you're not rolling with us, Ain't no discussion to be had.
You gonna get down or you gonna lay down?
Get down or lay down. And I think that's every hot topic that we whether it be gay marriage, whether it be abortion, whether it be immigration, whether it be domestic violence, whether it be corporal punishment.
Right.
It comes down to who you down with. There is no gray area. There is no moderate.
Right.
It's either conservative or Republican, liberal, Democrat.
And it makes it tough.
Up or down.
It makes it tough for, and I've said this before, we have a listening group that is this big so far. Yeah. But it makes it more difficult when we have affiliations with other things to really, truly, be as upfront as you might want to and be as real as you want to, because in the back of your mind, you have to consider the fact that is my opinion going to run astray of the mainstream opinion and therefore end up costing me other things, costing me economically.
Right. I tried it on the collar the other day.
Okay.
I posted on the collar. And what I said was what I believe to be true. That I believe a lot of men, I'm going back to the Ray Rice situation. Mm-hmm. A lot of men believe inside themselves that they would react to a violent interaction with a female the way that Jay-Z did. I believe most men believe that is how they would respond. But what I believe the truth is that many men would not trust themselves not to respond the way that Ray Rice did. And I believe that is a harsh reality. And I put myself in. I said I cannot necessarily say that if I'm in an elevator with a violent woman that I may not swing to stop the situation. I'm telling you that in my better nature would not do that. What I'm saying is my decision making in that moment may not always attend to my better nature. And that's me being honest. And I tried that on the collie, and the very first response
they gonna hit you on
the next was is that the next time I'm fighting your woman, come and fight me, faggot. Right. And I understand that, and look, it's on the internet.
It's the internet.
It's the internet. But
come on,
I think that I'm speaking to something that I think a lot of men understand. And what I mean by that is not that I am a woman beater, not that I agree with violence against women, not that I agree with what Ray Rice did. What I'm saying is, we all would say, well, shit, fuck Ray Rice. Excuse my language, y'all. But listen, y'all.
I can't say that. I don't know. I can't say
but listen, y'all. I don't know. I don't know if everybody is going to be just hopping on that side. Well, there's no way I would ever do that. Well, just I'm not sure if that's necessarily the truth. That's all I'm saying.
So we'll keep our eyes on this. I think over the course of the next week, we'll hear more and more details about the AP situation. I don't know what kind of penalty. He was deactivated for Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's protocol.
Yeah,
with an indictment.
But then again, you have Ray McDonald who's still playing, and that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
In terms
these
of
are team decisions.
And they are. So I wish AP and his son the best. I hope that AP didn't obviously have intentions on harming this young man. And Ray Rice and his family too. I wish them the best because now the machine is working against Ray Rice.
That's right.
And once the machine is against you, it's difficult. I mean, we're talking about not only are you playing, but you won't be eligible to go on NFL Network and
the CFL said no too.
Commentate and do this, that, or third. So that scourge is over you forever. Basically.
No. Well, it is now. Chris Carter, he had a spat.
Yeah,
he did, but it was a different
league.
world.
It was in a different world.
Yeah, you're right.
So, real quick, let's just get into let's get back to the game. And it's funny that we would even be saying this based on what we just talked about, because at the end of the day, there's still, we as men and we as sports fans still have a level of excitement.
We're gonna do it about
the prospects of a new NFL season.
You have to walk in that.
What I challenged Quentin to do was give me 3 quick impressions from week 1. Not to time the show, but what are 3 things that kind of opened your eyes this week?
This is the official year. I mean, it's been happening, the last few years, but there's always that hope. But this is the official year where the Patriots are normal.
Okay.
This is that's done. Peyton Manning this year could potentially. A lot of people call Peyton Manning the greatest of all time. I do not. But I think this is the year where that argument actually starts to really make sense.
If he throws 45 touchdowns, 50 touchdowns?
Because I think it's going to happen, and I think that this is the year where I say, you know what, I am actually right up there with the best to ever do it. Mm-hmm. Also, the Seattle Seahawks are the best team on all three sides of the ball.
Really?
In the NFL. There is no team more talented than the Seattle. Offensively, defensively, and special teams.
What offensively sticks out to you that puts them above everyone
Russell
else?
Wilson is, I think, ticked off at the game manager tag he got from last year. Percy Harvin is the most dangerous man in the NFL. Beast mode is still legitimately beast mode. So that's case closed there. And the offensive line is still sturdy.
Okay.
Defense speaks for itself. And you always have Percy on special teams. Good night.
Okay.
That'll do it.
I watched a few games. I did a lot of red zone last week. And typically, as you know, I watch all of the early games at the same time. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Monday night first.
Okay.
I was impressed by... See, I always temper my excitement about the Lions.
You have to do that.
Those who lost 6 of 7 last year at the end of the year. But the thing that did make me excited about the Lions, first of all, their running game was shoddy. That kind of worried me. But I was very impressed by the mobility of Stafford.
Okay.
And his ability to buy himself time to kind of allow things to kind of develop a little bit further. They have a lot of great facets to their offense. I like what they can do in the middle of the field with the 3 different tight ends that they have, as well as Reggie Bush catching it out of the backfield. And there were a couple of freak plays that kind of gave them a little bit of help. The long touchdown reception by Calvin Johnson and things.
Some spice.
But I'm anxious to be excited about their offense. Their defense, I want to see that. The secondary is still scary to me, but I want to see what their offense does. And they looked extremely good. One thing that I did notice too was I'm really concerned about the level of sensitivity. And I know we talked about it during the preseason, but the sensitivity in terms of offensive players being hit by defensive players, when that's kind of the point of the game.
And away we go.
The Thursday night game, actually, this is week 2.
They hit to Big Ben.
Hit to Big Ben was a clean hit, but that's going to kind of be that's going to be a problem all year.
Yes,
and I fear that they're affecting the game.
And they made it known at the beginning of the year that this was going to be the way they're going to call it. So I don't know, man.
Will we see kind of a changing of the guard? Pittsburgh is in trouble. Yes. Pittsburgh is in trouble. New England is kind of going away. The Cowboys have been like 8-8 forever. If they don't step over the threshold here, they're going to be in some real trouble. The Giants are down.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
I'm anxious to see what the Falcons do. And so really what I'm looking for is I'm really anxious to find out who is the next guy or group of guys to step forward into the forefront, especially in the AFC, where the AFC for years has been dominated by the Colts, the Patriots, and the Steelers, essentially. The Giants.
Baltimore.
The Giants aren't who they were. The Giants have been down for a couple of seasons now. So there's an opportunity for some, and this is what is beautiful about sports, is that there's always somebody who comes about from nowhere and electrifies things. More so in the NFL, where there's so much parity when you talk about records and so little of a margin of error.
Any given Sunday still applies.
Right. Any given Sunday, anybody can win. So, the Rams won't necessarily be who they need to be. Will Tampa Bay turn a corner? Will Cam Newton make a receiving core out of nothing? Even if he plays this week, he's supposed to play this week. Will Geno Smith be what the Jets have been looking for? Will the Dolphins mature? Will And I think
Cleveland's defense carry them to at least half the season.
That's what keeps us watching, and that's what the NFL counts on to be its base. The thing that keeps the NFL going is the fact that every year there's an opportunity for somebody new to be competitive. So I'm anxious to see who that is this year. So that's my early impressions. I'm looking forward to. I look forward to every NFL season because it changes so much from week to week to week to week to week.
How are you doing in fantasy?
I lost both my games.
Damn.
I lost one game. Listen, I was down 49 going into Monday night. I had Reggie Bush going and Calvin Johnson going. The other guy who I was playing against was done.
Oh, wow.
And Reggie Bush and Calvin Johnson scored 48 points, and I lost by one. I was sick-witted record. If he had caught, it was one slant. It was one slant that he missed with like 2 minutes to go, with like 3 minutes to go, I think, where he dropped the ball, and I would have won because he, it's a PPR league, so I would have won off the reception plus the yards that he would have got. Sick with it, but guess what's crazy? I sat right before the game, like 12:30. I sat Brandon Cooks, I think his name, from the Saints.
Yes.
To play Ridley. To play Ridley in my flex.
You should have called me. You should have called me.
To play Ridley in my flex because I was like,
yikes.
And I was playing against Vereen, who was in my other league on my team, who balled.
Yeah.
Sick with it records. The other game, I just got bucked. Who balled? I don't even quite remember, but it was terrible. My other team, my team. Shout outs to the old school G League. My boy Beam, Dan, Li Lee, all of them. I got bucked, and I can't. I've never. I'm gonna say this to the people. I do research. I read all the columns. I do the podcast on the way home from work. I do everything. I have never won a Super Bowl. Never. Always competitive in the Super Bowl. Never misses the playoffs. I'm always kind of in the middle. I'm kind of like when they have, how they have like the player come in who just got put out of the playoffs to commentate during the conference finals in the NBA.
You're on the desk.
That's me. I'm Reggie Miller. You know what I'm saying?
Bart
so
Scott.
I claim to have all this information and knowledge, but I suck.
I won by the skin of my teeth, and the only reason I won was because Tom Brady did worse than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, don't count on that.
That's exactly what it was, because nobody else really did anything special.
I think this is gonna be my last year sitting on quarterback. I sat on quarterback again, and you kind of warned me against that. I have Kaepernick in both of my leagues, but I'm loaded in all my other positions. Loaded.
This year. I mean, your flex got to be strong. You're gonna have to run the ball, but you gotta have a slinger.
Yeah, I did pick up Carlos Hyde. Okay, that's too. I picked up Carlos Hyde.
I would have got Owen Daniels just recently.
Okay.
After he had that Thursday night game, we'll see what he can do with some fill-in. I dropped. I think I dropped Marvin Jones.
Okay. I do have Steve Smith on my bench.
Okay,
I haven't played him yet.
That'll work.
So maybe he can step in.
I'm thinking about maybe moving Jonathan Stewart in for Sunday because
I hate both of them.
D'Angelo Williams is hurt, but that's a desert. I got Pierre and Reggie.
But here's the thing, though.
I don't know what to do.
See, the platoon situation. I got Pierre and Mark Ingram in one league. And I'm just kind of like, I'm playing Mark Ingram because Peterson ass got, know what I'm saying, deactivated. And it's like, it's always a crapshoot. With Carolina, you always dealing with the issue that Jonathan Stewart, if you got Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, and Mike Tolbert. If you take one of them out of the equation, they're still, Mike Tolbert's still going to get your goal line touches. So it's tough. So, yes, that's week one. We're not even going to look at matchups this week.
It's not.
Next week we'll take a look at some matchups and things.
We'll start getting heavy.
It's too early.
Yeah, start getting heavy into, divisional matchups and stuff like that. Right? Week 5, week 6, and we start talking about some football.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next thing we want to talk about is our record review for this week. This week is Chris Brown's X, and I listened to it a couple of times. And Quentin has heard it as well. broader context, R&B as we know it is dead. And let me look at it this way. It's entirely wrong of us to anticipate or hope that R&B would be what it is 17 years ago.
Right.
When I think of R&B, I think of How Deep Is Your Love by Keith Sweat.
There you go.
I think of Jodeci's first album. I think of 112's first album.
Drew Hill.
Yeah.
D'Angelo.
Yeah. And then you went R&B, you went neo soul, and then something else. So I have a proposal to completely destroy the R&B genre and put things into 3 different categories where it involves a black artist predominantly rapping. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
The first category is called multi-genre pop. Multi-genre pop has ethos from hip-hop, from rap.
Okay.
This is like Chris Brown a little bit. Chris Brown goes in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, he does. Yes, he does.
The second category is Negro Electronica, which infuses elements of ambient music, down-tempo, drum and bass, things of that nature. Really,
is that Drake?
The Weeknd. Drake.
The Weeknd, yeah.
Drake.
Okay.
The Weeknd.
I'm kind of with you here.
Tinashe.
I don't know much of that.
I told people about Tinashe. I want to put that on the record.
Go ahead.
I told people about Tinashe. I said, so she had the big single, whatever. We need to see what her album should be coming out this month, I think.
Maybe we should do that one.
But her stuff before then, it was well written. It was very Weekendish, and I think that sound is what dominates that field right now.
Okay.
And then there is singing. That's the third category.
Singing. Good old fashioned singing.
Singing is your John Legend, your Kim, your what's the girl's name? Jennifer Hudson.
Okay.
That kind of thing. And see, the reason that the singing genre is kind of falling apart is because the relationship between black music and the church has changed. Because singing is a function of the church. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
When you think about how so many great singers from our childhood and before began in the church, and great musicians began in the church, now it's different. Even though the amount of people who are in church may, I don't know statistically whether it's less, it probably is less, but how the church was really the hub of the community, and that your ability to participate in that institution in the neighborhood kind of gave you a certain amount of respect. I think that has changed. I think that I think that when it comes to black music, whereas church was the hub and kind of like the headquarters of people going into different fields, and different fields within music in terms of musicianship, is in terms of vocal production and things of that nature, that's kind of gone away.
Yeah, that's
gone away.
I didn't even think about that angle.
Think about Whitney Houston.
Right. And that's
not, and we're not even talking about the technical.
I didn't even think about that angle. That's dope.
So we're not even talking about the technical side. What separates singing from the other genres, the multi-genre pop and the Negro Electronica, is the feeling. And the singers that give us that feeling, that Fantasia, Anthony Hamilton,
Jill
Mary
Scott.
J. Blige, Jill Scott, are going away. Now, and I'm not even really blaming auto-tune. I look at it as just the subject matter has changed. Go back to the church. When you were a black singer that came out of the church and you made secular music, there still was a limit to what you would say. Because of your affiliation, you still had those affiliations.
Right.
You
had a responsibility.
You did. So even though you were making love songs, they were love songs that were based on respect in a lot of situations. You don't see somebody sing in a church growing up and then be make your booty pop song.
No.
You know,
No.
so that's when I was talking about multi-genre pop with hip hop ethos. Now, singers, black singers, let's just keep it what it is. Black singers are infusing some of the rules of rap into their music, and therefore it's kind of crossing things up. If you're talking about in an R&B song, or you consider yourself an R&B singer, and you're talking about the same things that they talk about in rap songs or hip hop songs that are edgy and things of that nature, that's you do what you do, but that's not what we can consider R&B.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at somebody like a Ty Dolla $ign, is Ty Dolla $ign a hip hop artist or is he a singer?
Right.
It's multi-genre pop. That's what it is.
Pop.
It's not something it's in the middle. So Chris Brown, again, people, I always look at the release of major mainstream albums as watershed moments in the discussion about music, because they are supposed to alter the stream.
Yeah. Or encapsulate what's going on right now.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. So Chris Brown, and I've never really appreciated a Chris Brown album before. I didn't really care for Fame. I didn't really care for Fortune. I didn't really care for his first one. I've never really.
And I'm a fan. I mean, it's song for song. I don't know anything about a Chris Brown album.
He makes a few great singles, but in terms of an album, it's difficult for me to really get into him. So listening to this, he does make the attempt at harkening back to really one of the forefathers of R&B at this point. I mean, R. Kelly is
for whatever you want to, forever, however you feel about him.
And R. Kelly
doesn't change anything.
You know, he makes an appearance on the album. Him and Trey Songz have a song, and I guess the whole thing that I take away from it is, and let me say this about the album too. One thing that I will say as a person who messes around with music is there are very elaborate arrangements in this album. Very, the programming and things of that nature, like it's that Negro Electronica. So there's a lot of different things that's infused into it.
That was the first impression I got from it. That it was extremely sophisticated.
It was well produced,
and it wasn't rushed. I don't think, even though it might have felt like it was rushed because of the things that he's been going through here recently, but it felt extremely sophisticated. So whatever team he was working with, these were people who had a very specific sound that they were trying to create for this album, and that comes through.
Well, I disagree from the fact that production-wise, it's all over the place. It's all over the place, and maybe that was what was intended.
That's what I think.
It's all over the place. I mean, there's drum and bass. There's house, deep house kind of things. There's
this is an album
the ambient, kind of thing.
Chris Brown is taking over.
This is the album where he's supposed to.
That's what I think.
With multi-genre pop, right? / Negro Electronica too, because they're both very closely aligned. The reason I make that distinction though is because, like The Weeknd has no interest in being. I don't think he has any interest in crossing into different genres and things of that nature. He just makes songs about drugs and what he makes songs about. Just go on YouTube and check them out. But and there's an entire lineage of artists that have kind of taken that, and established artists that have kind of taken that sound and tried to run with it as well. So as far as Chris Brown goes, it's another one of those albums where there's a lot of great singles, but it does lack a certain level of continuity. Yeah. And one thing that I thought about when I was talking about the whole Keith Sweat thing, because I was thinking to myself, like, why am I trying to hold them to the same standards that I'm holding? Why am I trying to hold them to those standards? That's completely unfair, because even did when you look at classic rock, for example, is it fair for me to say Metallica should be held in the same regard as the Moody Blues? I mean, we're talking about spans of time here.
I don't know if that's the right discussion to have, whether it's fair or not. I think it's a natural thing. I think it's kind of just a natural reaction to music in terms of history and context. I don't think it's necessarily fair or unfair. I just think that that's something that people do, and so we should take it just on its face value.
Right. And I don't want this show to be about my nostalgia.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Because that's gonna run out.
So being very objective, trying to be very objective, and trying to always go back to looking at what Chris Brown's demographic is. Did he accomplish the goals that he set? And truth be told, he did. He got a couple of songs on there that I could see being singles that could garner him some, attention. And it fits the modern framework of the music industry because people aren't selling albums anymore. Right. So the fact that he has a couple of singles, a couple of songs that he could do some cool remixes with, some songs that young teeny boppers will play in their little.
And I will say this about Chris Brown. His sound has changed with his market. Mm-hmm. I remember songs like his early albums. Like, what's the song that I like? Take You Down. Yeah. That song could have played when I was in high school.
Yeah. Agreed.
That song could have played when I was in high school.
Agreed.
That's a slow dance.
Agreed.
Champion song. Well, that song would have no place on this album. He's not even making that kind of music anymore.
No.
And so there's a growth, whether it's up or down. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's definitely changing his sound, and whoever he's catering to with this album is definitely not necessarily catering to my sensibilities about what slow dance music is.
And there it is.
That's fine with me. It is what it is.
He's catering to everyone because it's multi-genre pop. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So let's do this.
Okay.
Let's create a baseline here. Okay. All right. What happened to R&B? Because we're talking about R&B in the context of damn. So if we're making that assertion, let's define what happened. I have an answer. You have an answer. Go.
I have 3 answers.
All right.
When R&B melded, it's like after neo soul came around, and neo soul did not garner the same pop attention that it did. Record companies placed less emphasis on it.
Okay.
A. B. The musicianship and the vocal tenacity that comes out of the church went away.
Okay.
3, controversy. White people started doing it better than we did in terms of what it was. Because I'll put it like this. I'm not a big Robin Thicke fan. I'm not, Justin Timberlake had a couple of hot albums though. Straight up, that Future Sex Love song was banging. When you look at what happened, look at Adele. Adele is an R&B singer to me. Straight up. Adele is an R&B singer.
I'm not debating.
Amy Winehouse was an R&B singer.
I'm not debating.
Remy Shan was an R&B singer.
Yeah. Joss Stone.
So you have across the pond, there's a different, and a lot of people in America don't understand that there's a different level of affinity for black music in other places than there is here because we're so inundated with it over and over and over and over. So that's what I think happened. I think that the soul was stolen out of it when the money left it.
Okay.
And that's what I think.
I have one.
And it became multi-genre pop.
I have one answer. Dancing.
Explain.
R&B artists didn't used to dance.
What?
R&B artists didn't used to dance.
What? Are you?
R&B artists did not used to dance.
What did they used to do? What was Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes doing on stage?
Okay. Routines, but full-blown dancers.
Oh, like
Usher. Everybody wants to be Michael Jackson. So that's what did it for me. So a routine, for when Jodeci comes out and does a dance routine, but there's a moment where they stand still and
they
sing.
Blow, like Shy.
Okay?
Wow. I never thought about it like that.
That's what I think happened to the genre. Even though we had some crooners throughout the thread, right? There's got to be examples of, well, this happened and this happened. R. Kelly is a perfect example of that. Surrounding him are people who they want to be entertainers, not necessarily great singers.
Yeah.
And I understand because there's a long lineage in music history of great entertainers. And why wouldn't you want to be that?
Yeah,
Right.
And I want to also say, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I also want to say that another thing that killed it was a lack of good writing.
Well, there's that too.
Because all of a sudden it was like you need to make the song fit into your, fit into the framework where everybody can be comfortable with it. So
Janet Jackson's video lineage explains to you how R&B left us, because the video was not about the song.
Never.
It was about just get to the dance routine.
Right. But see, and what also happened is your truly great singers fell into the balladeer standard, and take John Legend. My wife loves John Legend. My son loves John Legend. I, for the love of me, cannot feel. I can't say I can't. I cannot get into, like, I can't listen to John Legend consistently because it's very, I think in the context of everything else we listen to, it's very sappy.
And I think it's contrived. After the first album, Get Lifted was dope. After that, I can take it or leave it.
Right.
I can take it or leave it. But we can do that with a lot of artists. And we had, you got to remember, man, we had Brian McKnight trying to dance. So when you see artists who have carved out a lane try something else in order to gain support, to gain popularity, then you should make sure you identify what that is,
right,
and then see who else is doing it.
And it's funny you say that because
Mary J. Blige danced.
Listening to this, with the whole
that was
family affair,
bad.
It was terrible.
Breakdown.
Don't you know my stilo?
And the hip hop choreography is part of and there's a career in hip hop choreography now, which is good. But I think we sacrificed great R&B music as a result.
It is, but like I was saying, it kind of, this, listening to this album and putting it into the context of R&B and making sure that I looked at it objectively made me also think about, I need to make certain that the music, even the music that I make on the side, is, in order for it to gain a certain amount of attention, it does have to reflect certain patterns and things that exist in current music, because I'm straight boom bap, premiere,
right? But you want to be progressive. You want to be current.
But you have to be progressive.
Yeah.
So it just kind of frames my thinking. I listened to, on the way home today, on the way home from Flint, I listened to Childish Gambino, because the internet. And I don't know if you've heard that.
No.
But it's a very, very well produced album that is like Negro Electronica, but it's still, he's still rapping and he's doing some singing too. So I guess it's more multi-genre pop because he's doing all of it. But multi-genre pop and Negro Electronica kind of mesh a little bit. Maybe it's just two areas. But in listening to it, I'm like, there's still rules that the production follows that can be embedded into what I do, and I do try to embed more, a little bit more ambient sounds and things of that nature, and really dressing the sample up. I love sampling. Sampling is just what it is to me. But
that's the wrestle, isn't it? Isn't that the torment, right? Being a person who creates these sounds, you don't want to give up who you are for what's current, but you don't want to sacrifice what is current and then be obsolete.
Yeah, and what I kind of decided was, let me just continue to make what I like, but make sure that what I like reflects that I understand and respect what is happening now, but I'm still not making.
Okay. So that's kind of like that's kind of like the old guy who, like, he's wearing a sweatsuit on a Saturday, so he's obviously the old guy at the mall, but he has like a pair of new Air Maxes on.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Like, he'll have a caddy, but, and he'll keep the factory rims on it. You'll be like an OG. You're not putting like some 20-inch, some hammer hubs on it or something. You know what I'm saying?
But it's the newest caddy that's out.
Like the old cat, the old cat at the gym that has like an iPod. You know what I'm saying? Not listening to like, a disc.
I love it.
But that was great. That was fantastic. So, Chris Brown, I give it a 3.
Yeah, 3.5.
You know, and like I said, I was really anticipating it. And Chris Brown can spit, you know, too. I've heard, you know, it's not subject matter wise, it is what it is, but it didn't bring anything new to the genre. And, you know, in a year that we've continued to talk about being a down year in hip hop music, you know, one thing I will say, and, you know, not to get too far into it, but I've been listening to a lot. I've been listening to Mac Miller, his album Faces, a lot. We're gonna have to talk about that album.
We probably
because
should
we're gonna have to have some conversation about album of the year. You know, probably closer to the end of the year, but that might be album of the year. Faces.
Yeah.
You know, and this was a free album. This was a free album.
Right.
That, let me tell you, you know how people got Faces? People could get Faces by you logged onto a website. Well, you didn't even log on. You actually you went to you clicked on a link, you went to a website, and all you had to do was make a sandwich they had like lettuce and like tomatoes and like meat and like bread. If you make a sandwich, you put in an email address, you get an email link, and you got the album.
Yikes. What is that?
It's the modern age of the music industry. That's what it is. So, yeah, 3, 4, definitely 3, 4.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right around there.
So, yeah, we talked about a lot. We actually tried to cut things down.
We covered a lot. Where did we end up at?
We went
fast?
I'm not even prepared to say.
Don't even worry about it.
But, yeah, this has been Pick and Roll, and we'll see you next week. Again, I'm Roderick Wallace.